If there's a new car behind you that wasn't there before, let them through. Today, we're talking about car and motorcycle track day groups. I'm here with Rocco. Rocco, do you want to say hi? No, not today? You're still feeling down with your foot? All right, well, we're talking track day groups. And we'll talk about cars and we'll talk about bikes. For cars, there's usually 4 groups from beginners to advanced. We might call these groups levels 1 for beginner up through 4 for advanced. For bikes, there's usually only 3 groups, beginner up through advanced. So level 1 is beginner and on up. For cars or bikes, if you've never done a track day before, then you're in the first group. You're in the beginner group. Now, beginner group may have rules like no passing on the first session. I may just be trying to learn the line. Now, if you're a beginner, this could be very frustrating for you, but you really should focus on the line. You can drive 40, 50, 60 miles an hour around the track and really get a good idea of where your car should be. And this is going to be really frustrating for you because you signed up for the track day and you want to go 100 miles an hour, but if you just wait out that session, the rest of the day should get better. Now, in a car, if we focus on them for a moment, in the beginner group, all the way up through potentially the intermediate groups, a lot of the times you will need to point people by in order to let people pass you. Now, to point people by, I could show you. This is how you give a point by. You're telling someone to pass you on the left. This is how you tell someone to pass you on the right. Notice how I stick my hand outside of the car and put it on top of the car. Now, you'll need to do one of those point bys if there's somebody behind you. Now, let me break it down and make it real simple so you know when you need to do a point by. If there's a new car behind you that wasn't there before, let them through. Now, on the reverse, if someone doesn't let you by, well, in the beginner and intermediate groups, you're stuck behind them. What is your plan here exactly? Do you want to pass somebody who's on a racetrack, potentially for the first time, and has no idea what's going on? Your plan is to pass them, and you have not communicated with them at all. That's a really bad idea. So if you just go around somebody, there's no telling if they decide they want to just turn their wheel and go off track because they think they have a flat tire or they smell brakes for the first time and they think their car's on fire. If somebody isn't giving you a point by, they're not paying attention and you have no idea what they're going to do. They're very unpredictable, especially in the beginner and kind of low intermediate groups. So if you are stuck behind somebody in one of these groups, what you can do is to pull into the pits and ask for some space. Now, while you're stuck behind them, maybe you want to try to learn the line a little bit more before you have a chance to pull in. But ideally, you will just pull into the pits, get some clear track, and go out again. It'll take all of 2 minutes. After the session is over, you can go back and complain to the track organizers and say you were stuck behind this person for such and such time. And then the track organizers should go follow up with that person and kind of educate them as to what they should be doing and see if they need other help. I've seen some track day organizers kick people out because they're not driving the way they're supposed to be. For level 2 in cars, a lot of times they will require point bys for turns, but it's open passing on the straight. And I would recommend trying to jump up to level 2 as soon as possible. It's really not that scary to have somebody zip by you on a straight. You should be watching your mirrors all the time anyways, and so just getting kind of a courtesy point by for turns is a nice to have. So I'd recommend trying to get out of the beginner group as soon as you can. And you really have to get over this fear, this phobia of, oh, I'm on a racetrack and somebody's gonna pass me and I may not know it. You'll see them behind you. They'll usually do it politely, and it's usually fine. We should do another video on track day insurance sometime to talk about what happens when it doesn't go fine. And it's not really what you would think. Anyways, let's move on to bikes. For bikes, level 1 has tons of newbies. People are taking the wrong lines, they have cheap equipment, they may have low experience, and on bikes, unlike cars, there's no point buys. It doesn't really make sense. Think about this for a minute. You're on a motorcycle, you have throttle, you have a clutch, you have a brake. You can't really be taking your hand off of the handlebars to say, yes, I can see you, it's okay, go around me. It does not fly, it's not gonna work. And so level 1 for bikes means you can pass on the straights with no point buy. The idea is you have a 6-foot bubble around you, and nobody should come closer than about 6 feet to you in order to pass. And people can only do it on the straights. People are pretty good on this. Also on bikes, there's a ton of space. You can have 3 people going into one corner and be totally fine. With cars, there's not a ton of space. 3 into 1, and somebody is either gonna brake real hard or somebody else is gonna have a real bad day. For level 2 on bikes, it means you can generally pass anywhere with the same 6-foot bubble, so you can pass in the middle of the turn, which is a little bit scarier. But again, I'd try to recommend trying to go into that level 2 on bikes as soon as you can, just to get out of the beginner groups. And in order to do that, you have to go over this phobia of somebody zipping around you on a turn. But on a bike, there's so much space on a racetrack. It's really fine as long as you pay attention and people you're riding with are generally polite. The aside on this is the level 2, when I was out there, I had some rider-on-rider contact. We're in the middle of a turn, and somebody tried to go on the outside of me in the hairpin at Sears Point. And they came a little bit too close and leaned over a little bit further than I did, and my right foot touched their bike, and it was just a very light tap, so everybody was fine, but it's just kind of a word to keep wise of where you're riding on the track and to be ready for anything that might come up, including rider contact, which really shouldn't happen, especially in the intermediate classes when there should be a 6-foot bubble. It doesn't happen all the time, but with bikes, there's usually kind of small touches like that really aren't going to upset things too much. Now let's go back to crashing. On every track day I've been to, cars or bikes, there's at least one vehicle that gets completely obliterated, totaled out, to roll over. So the real message here is to drive safe and within your limits, just to avoid doing that. It's usually somebody who isn't paying attention or is trying to drive beyond what they can actually do as a driver or a rider, and they end up getting caught. Now, if we go back to cars, cars in level 3 and 4, that's going up to the advance or race. These are open passing anywhere. And that's when you get the real racing cars. I'm not quite there yet, but maybe one day. And I did do a ride along with a guy who was doing the open passing, open everything day. And I remember I was at Laguna Seca in his E90 M3. So it was the 4-door V8, same one that I had at one point in time. But he had slick tires, and he had suspension, and he had brake mods, and he had a few other things. And I remember on my car, I would be going up to the crest at Laguna Seca on the main straight, and I would kind of trail off the brake, or trail off the gas. And I'd coast down the bottom hill to the hairpin. In his car, we get to the crest of the hill, and the whole car gets light. And we're still full throttle going down the hill. So we're accelerating towards the Andretti hairpin, and he's full throttle, and we're passing some other kind of smaller S2000 or Miata on the inside. And then at what seems like the last possible second, we slam on the brakes, and we slow down enough to make the hairpin, and we just keep zooming like that all the way around the track. So 15 minutes in that ride along really opened my eyes up as to what some of these cars can actually do, given the right equipment and with enough experience. There's your track day groups. So remember, the intro class for cars or bikes is usually point buy. Maybe there's no passing on the first session. I'd recommend trying to get up to the intermediate classes as soon as you can, but you have to be comfortable having people pass you. That's the biggest thing. And you're on a racetrack and they'll pass you fast, and you really have to watch your mirrors and communicate. If you can get up to the advanced levels, you're probably not watching this video to learn about the track day groups. But for everyone else, I hope you enjoy a track day and can join the right group. Signing off, this is Mike on Cars and Bikes.